Hey there, Georgie here with Ukraine Matters. A lot of news, not a lot of time. Let's jump in because we don't want this video to be 40 minutes long. Let's go. Firstly, as I'm recording this video right now, there is an absolutely massive Ukrainian attack against the Russians is ongoing. I'm going to be very interested to see what are going to be the results of it. And I'm looking forward, hopefully, to see flamingos be in action because we can see the density of drones is quite high. So I am hoping that they're trying to saturate the Russian air defense as much as possible so the missiles will get through. We'll see what the results bring tomorrow. Someone in Europe decided to take more of a my language in talking with Russia rather than our typical European bullshit. Belgian defense minister in an interview stated that Moscow will be wiped off the map if NATO is attacked. Asked whether he feared that Putin might one day launch a non-nuclear attack against Brussels, Frecken replied, no, then he will be striking at heart of NATO and we will wipe Moscow off the map. So, I mean, shit, this is more what I would expect me to say, and people that are following this channel or people that are supporting Ukraine and know exactly how to talk with Moscow. But here we are, a Belgian defense minister finally finding some dingling balls down there. It's definitely great to hear the change of rhetoric, but the question is whether or not this is the sentiment shared by other parts of the European Union. And overall, my hope it is, but I would like to see more of this. Well, props to Belgium for the correct attitude and the right tone striking when talking about and at Russia, and I hope this will scale up. But I would like to see Belgium release the frozen assets of Russians, please. In an interview with the State Security Service Vasyl Maluk, we found out some new additional details on the operations that Ukrainian secret services have been conducting on Russians. They have been extremely successful on the sea already with sea babies, but also we've seen additional operations such as spiderweb being performed inside Russia on also ground targets. And now Vasyl Maluk is stating that there are actually a lot of damage being dealt to Russians. About 33% of Russian Oreshnik missile, the one that Putin really bragged about, has been destroyed by Ukraine. Ukrainians, as per Vasyl Maluk, has now taken out one of the 3 launchers for Oreshnik missile in one of their hidden operations. And that is actually not all that he stated about the Russian capabilities. Beyond taking out the Oreshnik that Putin really threatened to the world once again, which doesn't really pose that much of a threat because it doesn't bring anything new to the table, Ukrainian SBU also stated that Russian air defense is being burned out to the ground. Specifically, he stated that Panzer defense systems, it's this kind of a truck. It has both missiles as well as the paired heavy machine guns with a radar mounted on top of it. This system proved itself to be very capable in the modern type of warfare where drones, these slower moving, simpler solutions, are very prevalent. Panzer is well suited to fight specifically against those kind of targets. And Ukrainian chief states that right now Ukrainians were able to take out some 48% of the total capacities of these Panzer systems. Right now, estimates are that with the scaled production capabilities, Russia is able to produce only about 30 of them per year. So that's not a lot of them. And Ukrainians are targeting these systems very, very heavily. Oh, what will Russia do when they will have little to no anti-air defense? That could be a complete disaster. A very short follow-up on the Tomahawk missiles. Pentagon actually went through, vetoed, and approved a transfer of missiles from United States to Ukraine. So there is no issue from the Pentagon side, which is great because this is where Eldridge Colby is located and where some kind of a hindrance to transfers to Ukraine could have been imposed. However, now with this hurdle cleared, it is now only up to Donald Trump to decide whether or not to transfer these missiles to Ukraine. So it's just one decision away. And in general, rhetoric that I've heard about the Tomahawk missiles is not if Ukraine will get missiles, but more sort of a when or under what conditions. We definitely are moving closer and closer to this, and I'm not going to delve too much into the analysis of what the Tomahawk missiles can do and how they can benefit Ukraine. There are some very juicy targets that even small number of Tomahawks can really help out Ukraine with. But most importantly, it's a massive symbolic gesture on providing more support to Ukraine, both from USA and also other allies. So looking forward to see what's going to happen, not putting a lot of eggs in this basket, however. Some great news coming from Ukrainian weapons manufacturers, specifically tank shells. So far, most of them have been provided by allies and what has been produced at ally factories, but now it is stated that under the Czech license, Ukrainians will be producing shells for Abrams and Leopard 2 tanks themselves. It has been stated that we are looking at hundreds of thousands of shells being produced in a relatively short time frame, maybe within a year or even faster, depending on the funds. Latest Russian refinery is being shut down due to the Ukrainian strikes. The Ilsky oil refinery in southern Russia is the latest to join growing list of plants struck offline because sanctions block access to repair equipment and Ukrainian ongoing strikes as the primary cause. And I've read a little bit of analytics about the prospects for the Russian fuel sector and general refining capabilities. And here I want to throw a stone into the garden of all of the experts. I read some 4 articles describing the state of the Russian fuel refining industry and the prospects for the future. And my problem is that all of them stated that about by the end of 2026, Russia might recover to the level that it had where it can get reasonable funds from this industry. So like a whole year, it will take Russia by this point to recover from Ukrainian strikes altogether. However, all of them also describe this as a situation like Ukraine just going to stop attacking Russia. I know it's hard to estimate it, but still it is completely unrealistic to expect that suddenly we will see Ukraine just stopping their campaign. It would be great to see if experts will also take this scenario into account in the next write-up. But already now we can see how bad it's gotten. In the latest Bloomberg article, we can see the trends for the Russian fuel exports, and we see that it's pretty bad. The interesting for us is 2022, the year when Russia started things, and 2025, the year that is now. And you can see that 2025, the yellow line, is the lowest it has ever been. It is right now about 1.85 million barrels per day. The highest it has ever been is about 3.1, 3.2. So it's almost 2 times lower right now, the exports of Russian fuel, than it was at its highest at the 2022 February, before it went complete downhill. And this is the lowest it has ever been. Another proof that Europe is fully decoupling itself from Russia is that Lukoil, one of the major Russian producers of oil and fuel, is now also forced to sell its subsidiaries inside of Europe. The planned asset sale is most consequential action so far by a Russian company, resulting from Western sanctions imposed over war in Ukraine. It's good that we're finally burning all of the bridges for Russians to quickly enter the European markets once again. The less assets of Russians there are in Europe, the safer we all will be. We are hearing mixed messages coming from India. On one hand, they're stating that they will not be buying Russian oil, and we see a lot of the government companies are canceling a lot of these contracts. On the other hand, we are hearing that India is saying that they will buy Russian oil only from the non-sanctioned sources. And I would also add to this coming from the Indian private sector, where they are stating that they will be looking to buy more Russian oil if the discount will be greater. So all of this gets us an Indian oil sector is about 50-50. 50 is government run and 50 is private. And all of this gets us to a very weird situation where India nominally is stating that they will not buy Russian oil and they will definitely not use clear, honest sources. But I truly believe that this is all just putting some dust in our eyes and just putting a farce here, and they will obviously try to circumvent these sanctions. That's why it is going to be crucial to see whether or not there's going to be a follow-up on the sanctions, or this is just a statement that Donald Trump's administration made, and there will not actually be any major follow-up. If there is, however, then we will see actual impact. But so far, I would read this signal coming from India as we will still try to buy Russian oil, only maybe not through the super official channels. We hear more confirmations about Gripens coming to Ukraine, and it is clear for us that not only Saab is planning to opening a Gripen factory in Ukraine, which would be great, but also it is expanding their production on their other facilities. So while a lot of people take the numbers that of Gripens that were produced beforehand, all of these calculations do not estimate what will happen if Gripens suddenly start growing their production capabilities. And as I already explained, if Gripens will show themselves to be very capable in Ukraine, this could open a whole new European market for this Swedish manufacturer. I think this is fantastic news, especially coming for Canada, as I know Canada was looking for tighter relationship also with the Europeans. So, and generally, this is all good news for Ukraine and Ukraine supporters. Go Sweden. Massive new construction of artillery plant began in Poland, and this is crucial. And I'm really glad that they're showing the numbers here, because you will see just the scale of this enlargement. Europe is finally rearming, and this is showing the scale. So currently, this factory that produces artillery shells is 9,000 square meters of facilities. And they are right now building to expand to additionally add 18,000 square meters. So they are tripling the size of their facility. And that means one thing and one thing only: long-term contracts. Europe has enough money to overflow Ukraine with weapons. It has enough money to completely erase whatever capabilities Russia have. We had always political problems and problems with commitment. We don't anymore. This is the clearest message to me that Russia is truly fucked, no matter how many square meters they will capture in Pokrovsk. And let's state a couple of words about the Pokrovsk. We're going to talk about the front line and the situation in Pokrovsk in a frontline update at the end of the week, so don't worry about that. But the main problem in Pokrovsk that has been outlined time and time again is Ukrainian manpower shortage. And this is often attributed to the problem of poor recruitment inside of Ukraine. This is not the case. Recruitment in Ukraine is going quite well. We're again going to touch on it a little bit later. The main problem for Ukraine is this chart over here. This is the Ukrainian number of criminal cases. So the orange bar here, this is AWOL, and then yellow, this is desertion. And this is open cases from the Ukrainian official sources. So there are good news on there, and there's bad news. The bad news, that number of cases is insanely high. It is 17.2 thousand cases that are opened during the month of September. So that is a lot. Right now, we know that Ukrainian recruitment drive is about 30,000 per month. And that means one thing and one thing only, that if you add this together with some casualties that Ukraine mostly sustains as well on the front lines, then Ukraine is only able to essentially renew their forces. They cannot really grow their forces. And even generally, the attrition rate just keeps climbing. So that's why I always underscore that the main problem for Ukrainian army right now is not that there is not enough recruitment. There is enough recruitment. What is not enough is there is not enough being fought against this AWOL situation in Ukrainian military. Now, I want to be absolutely clear that this number 17.2 thousand does not represent all people that go AWOL. In Ukrainian military, there is a stupid situation that you cannot be transferred from one unit to another. Watch my video on the problems within Ukrainian military to understand the context even more. And in this situation, for example, if you have a dumbass commander in your little structure, you cannot just write a piece of paper that will transfer you to that will transfer you to another kind of a structure. You cannot just do it. There is no system in Ukrainian military. So what Ukrainians are doing is they're abusing the return system from AWOL that is present in the Ukrainian military. So when Ukrainian soldier wants to kind of change the units, what he does is he goes AWOL. The case is now reported to the military command. Sometimes it's even the soldier himself that reports it. Then he comes back to the Ukrainian military, and by the program that is allowing him to come back within a certain period of time after AWOL, he can then choose which unit he wants to go to. And second somewhat good thing is that at least while trend is high, it is also mostly stable. So I think more needs to be done to bring this down at least to the half level. And then maybe we will see what is happening with Ukrainian military actually, and whether or not they can get more people into the military. But I do think that they're already working on this. Something I can never understand about Ukrainian mentality, and if you're Ukrainian, you're welcome to share why in the comments section, is why it is allowed for the civilians to be on the front line in the cities, in at least frontline cities. I believe forced evacuation must be in order, no matter what they say. And this is allowing Russians to do these tactics. Now, knowing all of the war crimes that Russians are already committing, then having them in Pokrovsk just dressed as civilians, this is, by the way, a Russian drone operator, that is just, minimal of the charges. But the point of the matter is, major things why Russians are able right now to infiltrate Pokrovsk and just walk around the city is because they're dressed as civilians, and Ukrainians, if they're not sure, they will not strike a civilian. This is such a hindrance. I don't understand why Ukraine is tying their hands behind their back altogether. This is clearly something that needed to be done day one, and if this will not raise this problem up to the highest level, I don't know what will. But yes, Russians are obviously committing war crime. This is called, I believe, perfidy, and they are dressing up as civilians to just infiltrate Ukrainian positions. Unfortunately, it is still hard in Ukraine, not only for warriors on the front line, but also for civilians. Russia has launched another massive attack targeting Ukrainian energy infrastructure. 650 drones and over 50 missiles, especially in this case where residential buildings and a dormitory was damaged. I know for all of us it's just now, it's a daily event, so how do we report about it to make sure that it leaves the impact? I don't think we can, but it's important for us to keep this in mind, that Russia is doing this every single day for the next time someone starts talking about Ukraine escalating something against Russia. Every single day. President Zelensky stated that there will be a common document coming from the United States, Europe, and Ukraine on the vision on how they will see the end of this war. I am very hopeful for this document to finally appear. So there is a paper that is potentially signed and presented by all parties that everyone can agree on and bounce off of. I don't expect this to be realistic end of the war, because I think there's going to be a lot of pressure on Ukraine. But then said, I do feel that there is a lot of countries in Europe that support everything that Ukraine does and will support Ukraine at whatever resolution Ukraine sees fit, and will not allow anyone else to pressure it. Countries like the Nordics, Baltics, Poland will definitely stand behind Ukraine. And I'm pretty sure also some of the Central European countries as well. Maybe even Belgium. And now I want Russians to experience one emotion and one emotion only: fear. Because fear is what they should get when they see this video. This is Robert Braudy, Magyar. He is the head of the Unmanned System Forces. And he is stating that they're scaling up the Unmanned System Forces. Right now, unmanned system forces in Ukrainian military constitutes about 2% of the total count of personnel. And with the new plan of Robert Brody, they are now going to be hiring additional minimum 15,000 new people to push the number of personnel to 5% of the total quantity of Ukrainian armed forces. Everything that we saw happening so far with regards to Russian fuel, with the strikes against Russian operations, Russian economy, this was all done with very, very, very limited number of people. And now there is a massive new recruitment, and there is going to be investment in the Magyar's vision for what to do with Russia. This could potentially be the death sentence. This guy can deliver. He already proved it time and time again, and now he's being given the resources he has been asking for. It is gonna be insanely bad for Russians. And we are gonna be very much on this channel looking forward to see a little bit more of Jaga Jaga. Thank you so much for watching. Press subscribe to help elevate this video in the algorithms so more people can see it. Support Ukraine. Let's kick some Russian butt. Trust in Ukrainian armed forces. I love you. Slava Ukraini. And I will see you next time.
Очі та жало, хробачий жах.